G'day ladies and gents, welcome to Elite Dangerous with Mags. Now for today's video we're going to go over the simple question of what is Elite Dangerous. Well, Elite Dangerous is the fourth installment of the Elite series, which started back in 1984. It is a space exploration, trading and combat simulator, and it is currently in the gamma phase of development. This is the final phase before release. It's in final polish. The last additions are being added to the game. Final release is December 16th, 2014, so at the time of this recording there's about 17 days until Elite Dangerous goes live. Well, that's the wiki page entry covered, so what is Elite Dangerous really? Well, if I was to compare it against a game that is already in existence, you would probably know, in terms of scope, the closest game to Elite Dangerous would be EVE Online. This is a game that relies heavily on emergent gameplay. You are not told what to do in Elite Dangerous. What you do is entirely up to you. When you first start the game, you are gifted a Sidewinder, the basic starter entry ship, and a load of very basic equipment to kit this ship out. This ship is... well, it's not very good, if we're entirely honest, and the gear you are given has basically no resale value. It's like the starting gear in any MMO. From that point on, you're sent into the stars on your merry way to do as you wish to do. Do you want to trade goods between stations? You can do that. There is a dynamic trade economy. If you trade too many goods between stations, that trade route will eventually devalue and you'll need to find a new one down the track. Do you want to enter into mining? Maybe make some money mining the asteroid belts or the planetary rings in particular star systems. That's an option for you as well. You will need to get a little bit of bank up to buy that starting equipment. Once you have access to the basic stuff, however, you can go on and make your money this way. Smuggling illegal goods between stations or pirating the trade routes and the ships that move between them is entirely an option as well. Or maybe you want to be a bounty hunter and hunt down pirates and smugglers, destroying their ships for their value in bounty. These options are available to you as well. Or last but not least, maybe you want to be an explorer, charting out new unexplored stars and seeing how far you can cross the galaxy. Can you get to the other side of the galactic rim? That's an option as well, though we'll come down to that a little bit later. As I said earlier, in terms of scope, the game is very similar to EVE Online. However, that ends, as you can see, the second you undock from the station. Unlike EVE Online, this is not a third-person point-and-click game. You control the ship directly from the pilot's seat. There is no third-person views, there is no external cameras. The entire ship is controlled via menus that you simply look at, as you can see here, to the left and right of you. Now as for controls, a joystick is what I'm using here, however mouse control is fully integrated, so you don't need a joystick in order to play. You can look around the cockpit free look with a mouse, or if you're lucky enough you can use track IR to look back and forth between the various screens that allow you different controls and menu options within the ship, or there are key bindings on the keyboard that will directly take you to them, which is what I'm using here. I'm not lucky enough to have track IR, unfortunately. Also, unlike EVE Online, you cannot autopilot between the various star systems that you need to move through. Well, the option's not even available. You need to be on control because this will happen fairly regularly. What's happening here is I'm being interdicted by a pirate ship. It's trying to take me for my goods. I have to try and keep my cursor on the target vector indicator, or the escape vector indicator in front of me. That will allow me to break away and escape his grasp. Now, should I have failed that interdiction, I would have been dropped out of FTL speeds, the pirate ship would have exited from FTL right behind me, locked onto me and been able to freely engage me. A cooldown would have activated on my FTL drive, preventing me from being able to immediately get away. I would need to buy myself some time evading combat in order to allow the drive to cool down in order to respool and re-jump to light speed. However, since I managed to evade the interdiction, what actually happens is the pirate ship attempting to interdict me fell out of FTL speeds, I continued onwards, and he now has a cooldown on his drive. It'll take him around 60 seconds before he can respool the drive, and by that time I'm going to be far away. Anyways, back to the game. Now, one of the major differences between Elite Dangerous and many other recent space games, including EVE Online, is there is no gate system. Most games that have been released recently have a gating system, a series of jump gates that allow you to navigate between star sector to star sector. These operate as boundaries, or entry points, in order to be able to get from one to the other. Ships in Elite Dangerous have a maximum range based on the power of their jump drive and the model of ship they have in light years. They have a fuel reserve, which you can see my fuel gauge in the bottom right hand side of my screen, that measures the maximum amount of times you can jump, and the stars themselves are your navigational points between systems. If a star is within direct jump distance of your ship, you can jump to it from anywhere within a star system. It is worth noting when arriving at a star, it is worth immediately turning away from it. You will be moving still at superluminous speeds when you come out of the jump, and you are likely, if you do not turn, going to smash into the gravity well of the star, get pulled out. It will cause an overheating issue on your jump drive and a cooldown, as well as the close proximity to the star beginning to overheat the hull of your ship, causing damage, and ships can be expensive to repair depending on model. So once you've undocked and you've made your first trip between the stars and reached your destination, you come up to docking, and this is where the game varies again. Many games that have been released recently have either an auto-docking feature incorporated into all ships as standard, or the game will simply teleport you inside the hangar. This is not the case with Elite Dangerous. There are multiple types of stations you'll encounter. The first are Coriolis designs. These are large stations that rotate in order to create artificial gravity. They feature an airlock on the front that you must pass through. Once you're into the internals of the station, you are able to land around the outside wall of the station. Or you encounter these outposts. Now these are large 3D space stations. The docking ports can be in any position and you have to manually dock. First step is to request docking with the station. The station will then give you a timer and a docking pad in order to use. Then you've got to find it. Once you pass into a close enough range, your radar in the center section of the screen will change over to a docking navigation system. You've got to line up your center point with it, make sure your landing gear is deployed, and lower yourself into the center. This will automatically magnetically lock you to the hull of the station. From this point you can either enter the station for refitting, or you can simply access its services while parked on the pad on the outside. It is worth noting that in heavily populated systems, staying on the pad will annoy a lot of people, as there is a limited amount of docking ports available at stations. In heavily trafficked stations, you sitting on the docking port, you are actually restricting access from other people docking until you leave. Entering the space station will drop you into a hangar via an elevator that is mounted underneath the landing pad, and clear that landing pad for other pilots to be able to come in. So if you're going to be at the station for some time, or you're planning on going AFK between trade runs, pull yourself inside the station. So, are there NPC missions to run? Well, yes, the mission you just saw me running then was my first one out of my starting station. Now, this is a NPC trade mission. I was moving somebody else's goods from station to station. Here I am pulling myself inside the internal hangar, freeing up the docking port for whoever else wants to use it. The animation is quite gorgeous, to be honest. In terms of graphical fidelity, this is one of the most beautiful space games I have ever played. Now, undocking from the station is quite simple. You just simply exit off the pad, use your thrusters to pull away once you are released, retract your landing gear, and begin to move yourself out of the gravity well. You'll see the indicator for that in the bottom right hand side of the screen. While you are in the station's gravity well, or within a planetary gravity well, you cannot engage your FTL drives. You must move yourself away so you're no longer mass locked, and then you'll be able to jump to FTL speeds or jump to another star, depending on what you want to do. Now, NPC missions. Is there anything else besides NPC trade missions? Well, yes, there's a huge number of missions you can do. There is also an active war between the three major NPC empires within the game. You can choose sides and engage in battles with these, and your actions will influence galactic politics and things that happen within the game. Most of this is being game mastered by the developers themselves. They are basically in charge of the war, and depending on what players do, they will change reactions over time. So it's a very immersive experience in that way. Your actions will influence the galaxy as you take part. However, for the NPC combat missions involving the war, I would strongly suggest not entering straight in a starter ship. While the starter ship itself, you will just be issued another one if you do get shot down. It is highly unlikely you will survive the battle. The NPCs can be fairly difficult in this game, especially the ones in the military combat zones. So, as I mentioned earlier, one of the other things you can do within Elite Dangerous is simply explore. Space is big, but how big is Elite Dangerous? Well, this is where the big numbers come into play. According to the developers, Elite Dangerous is around 100 billion star systems big. Now that number sounds kind of obscene, but it's absolute genius how the developers have managed to do it. The core systems of Elite Dangerous are based around our solar system at its centre. The stars surrounding it are stars that we have actually discovered here in real life. These stars are mapped out as to the best of our knowledge of what actually is within them. The exoplanets that surround these stars, whether or not they are binary stars, whether or not they are black holes. These are all recreated faithfully. However, if you choose to take up the exploration role, once you progress beyond these core systems, new stars begin to be procedurally generated, new star points that you can jump to. As you jump to each one of these star points, an entirely new star system is procedurally generated on that star point. You can then earn money by mapping out these systems, exploring the planets, taking scans of everything that is within the system, and then selling this information to the various cartographer groups within Elite Dangerous. What's even more brilliant about this system is how the various NPC factions react to this new information. The further the players explore into the star systems surrounding the core systems, the NPC factions will react and begin to expand into these systems, building new stations, beginning mining, starting trade routes between these stars, colonizing the planets themselves. The further out the players explore into the galaxy, into the 100 billion star systems at maximum that the game can hold, the further out the NPC factions will move. How far can you go? Well, you can go completely across the galaxy from one side to the other. You can travel through the core systems, you can move around the outer rim. Where you go is entirely up to you. This expansion is completely player controlled. As I understand it, no NPCs will explore these star systems. It's entirely on the player base to do so. Now, there is a risk involved in doing this. As I said before, the ships are limited only by their maximum jump capabilities, but also by fuel. So if there's no star systems or no stations within these star systems, how do you refuel? Well, you refuel from the stars themselves. There is a module that you can equip to your exploration ships that will allow you to skim fuel off the surface of stars. It's extremely risky to do so, but it allows you to basically jump for as long as you want. The only thing you will not be able to do while you are out there is actually repair your ship, as there will be no stations to facilitate that repair. So how's the combat of Elite Dangerous? I quite enjoy it. It's very much a standard fare of Starfighter. Newtonian physics come into basis. Your ship is equipped with a guidance computer which you can disable at will, allowing your ship to slide and engage in combat sideways. While this system is enabled, ships will fly much like standard Starfighters from most games that you've probably played in this genre in the past. The manoeuvring thrusters that I showed before during docking can also allow ships to side strafe, move up and down independent of their forward motion, as well as being able to reverse thrust for rapid acceleration. In the background at the moment, I'm interdicting a ship that currently has a bounty on it. I'm going to do a spot of bounty hunting. So interdiction complete. I've pulled this Viper out of FTL, scanning it, locking onto it and scanning it at the moment, confirming the wanted bounty, and then deploying hard points to engage in combat. Now, the ships of Elite Dangerous are fully customizable in terms of combat, or customizable for any role that you want them to achieve. Combat customization can include anything from engine upgrades to upgrading the hull to military levels so that you're resistant to either projectile, energy weapons, or a combination of both. Maneuvering thrusters can also be upgraded to increase the maneuverability of your starship, making it easier to get weapons on target. And of course, there is the weapon customizations themselves. Current weapons in Elite Dangerous come in three basic flavours. You're looking at energy weapons, projectile weapons, and missiles. Energy weapons are the simplest of the three. They require no ammunition or any supply after they are installed on. They do generate a lot of heat on your starship. They do have an energy capacitor which will run dry and require recharging in combat. Upgrading your reactor and your power transfer systems will increase the speed at which these capacitors will be recharged. Energy weapons tend to do large amounts of damage to shielding systems, but a lesser amount of damage to hull. Now, the second weapon that is available in Elite Dangerous is your projectile weapons. These are the opposite. These do require ammunition and do have a limited amount. They will reload in combat until you are out of your ammunition stores on board your starship. They generate very little heat on your starship, and they will not do so much damage in the way of shields, but will do extremely large amounts of damage to hull. It's also worth noting laser-based energy weapons. Obviously, lasers move at the speed of light. If you lock onto a target and pull the trigger, these will hit the target instantly. Projectile weapons do require a lead due to the fact of having a transfer time between firing and impacting the target. Now, both energy weapons and projectile weapons come in two forms, gimbaled and not gimbaled. Non-gimbaled weapons are set into a forward fire position. You will require to move your starship into a position where you are able to impact the target. Gimbaled weapons have a limited firing arc in front of the ship. This is what I'm using on these lasers at the moment. Gimbaled weapons will automatically track the target that you have selected, providing it is within the weapon's firing arcs, and will calculate for lead, allowing you to simply keep the target in the centre of the screen in order to strike. It is also worth noting that gimbaled weapons are generally less powerful than their forward-firing fixed weapon counterparts. The third weapon system available to you is of course the missile system. These will lock onto whichever target you have selected, and upon firing will track the target until it detonates on the surface of the hull. You can equip your ship with countermeasure systems to counter missile lock. Missiles are also incredibly expensive to use. They are not something you would recommend fitting into a starter ship and going after 500 credit bounties. You would want to hit a substantial target. Some of the missiles in the game can be quite expensive to have. There are also turrets available for the larger ships within the game. These are very important weapon systems for these ships. As a general rule, the larger ships in the game are the least maneuverable. When being attacked by a number of small fighters, it will be incredibly difficult to get your forward-firing weapons to lock on target. These turrets will be able to track enemy targets from multiple angles around the outside of the ship, allowing these larger vessels to be able to defend themselves. They are incredibly expensive, much like the ships you would attach them to, however. So much like everything else within Elite Dangerous, combat configurations are entirely at the player's discretion. The weapons that you wish to use are your choice to make. What are the best ones? Well, it depends on what you're trying to do. I personally lean towards a section of energy weapons on my early ships because I don't have to worry about ammo counts. Later on, you may want to go a mix between energy and projectiles. Energy to take down the shields, projectiles to take down the hull. I have seen configurations that consist of nothing but heavy projectile cannons, and these ships can be incredibly devastating, although incredibly expensive to run. Now, the last thing to mention on Elite Dangerous is there are two ways to play it. There is open play and solo play. Both these game modes require an online internet connection at all times in order to be able to play. Now, open play connects you directly to a single shard multi-instance server that all players on Elite Dangerous will be on. This is the one you go to if you want to fly with your friends. While on the open play server, you'll be able to freely interact with other players within the game. You will be able to hunt down players with bounties or be hunted by bounty hunters should you find yourself with a bounty, along with the NPCs that are normally within the game. This mode requires a pretty standard size internet connection. Standard broadband should be sufficient in order to be able to play and enjoy. Now, the second game mode is solo play. In solo play, there are no other players within the game. You are flying alone against the AI. An internet connection is still required, however. This is because while you may not be in the same server as all of the player base, you may be playing freely on your own. The actions of the players on the open server will still affect your game world. As players explore new star systems in the open play mode, you will see these star systems being explored and becoming available to you in solo play. Likewise, if you go and explore star systems in solo play, these star systems that you explore will become open to players in the open play mode. The same goes with trading between stations or interacting with the NPC factions within the game. So ladies and gentlemen, this is Elite Dangerous, available for £50 on the Frontier Development store, available to play on the 16th of December 2014. Hope you enjoyed this video. Click like if you do, subscribe if you want to see more. Fly smart, fly safe. I'll catch you between the stars.